Hello, everyone. We are back for another edition of Commerce Pulse, where we keep you up to date on data and trends from 500 plus e-commerce companies worldwide. I'm your host, Elena Kacan, community marketing manager and host of the Commerce Experience podcast. And I'm here with Roxy Couse. I'll let her introduce herself. You guys are not going to want to miss this.
Hi, everyone. My name is Roxy Couse. I am Director of Customer Experience here at Bloomreach, and I've been in the e-commerce space for well over a decade. I've led digital merchandising strategy for several Fortune 500 companies, and I also have a background in UX and have led product design and UX strategies as well. I'm excited to be here and be talking about Q4 as well as holiday of last year.
All right, let's get into it. What did last year look like, Roxy?
So before we jump into Q4 of 2023, I want to zoom out. So in our Bloomreach Insights data, we saw 5.6 billion searches, which is 1.1x more than we saw in 2022. So with that said, of course, there were a lot of trends that emerged. Some we have seen in years past, and then there were some new ones as well. So for starters, 63% of traffic took place on a mobile device, emphasizing the importance of optimizing for small devices. So when we're designing, creating, and delivering experiences, it's so important that we keep the mobile customer in mind. However, consistent with what we have seen historically, even though most visits are taking place on a mobile device, desktop is still where they are converting. So that's also something to be cognizant of as well, because that just means we can further optimize mobile, really thinking about that path to purchase to make sure that we're capitalizing on that traffic that's visiting us on small screens.
Sorry, I got ahead of us. My fingers got a little excited and happy. Back to Q4.
Yeah, so let's just jump into what we saw trending in terms of searches, categories, and products in Q4 of 2023. So I'll start with top searches. We saw a lot of searches for pajamas for the family, and other cozy type apparel, which reminds me, Elena, a lot of when we discussed cozy cardio on the podcast a while back and the emergence of this trend, which started from a TikTok.
I know the amount of cozy outfits that I have. I just cleaned out my closet the other day and it's absurd. So I'm all about the cozy, comfortable vibe, especially working from home. So this does not surprise me at all.
Absolutely. And then in terms of top categories, really not a surprise here is sales and clearance topping the list. So it was Q4, which means that people were definitely looking for a deal. But in 2023 specifically, there was a lot of price sensitivity, which is driven by the economy. And we saw a lot of retailers were very promotional, more promotional than they had been in the past. And then also on the list at the very bottom, cyber deals, which, this is a top category for last year, which isn't shocking from our Bloomreach data standpoint, because Cyber Monday was the largest day revenue-wise that we had seen for Bloomreach merchants, which we actually saw revenue grow 25% year over year on Cyber Monday alone.
That's insane. I love hearing these stats. This is really good to see. And I guess the sale and clearance, is that happening every Q4 or is that just this year?
We always see people looking for a deal, but I think even more so, like I mentioned, the economy and the uncertainty and people being more price conscious and price sensitive. Sales and clearance topping the list is not a surprise for last year.
No, totally makes sense.
And then I do want to talk about the luxury verticals specifically. If you are tuning in and you would like to see the slides, we do have a breakout by industry, but just thinking about the luxury vertical, I wanted to double tap here because as we mentioned, there was a lot of price sensitivity and people were looking for a deal, but that did not stop people from also buying luxury, which I really like that in the name of self-care. But, we saw brands such as Tory Burch at the top of the list. People are looking for Uggs, which is always a Q4 buy, and shoes, handbags. So it is really awesome to see that people are still buying luxury products, and the luxury vertical is thriving even with the economy and price sensitivity happening.
So interesting. I need to jump on my next purchase for next year. I'm excited. Hearing about luxury gets me excited.
I know. I really want the Golden Goose sneaker. So that's
okay. Roxy's putting it out into the universe, manifesting Golden Goose sneakers for herself. I love this.
And then I'll just briefly touch on home furnishings. I think this is a very important vertical for Q4 specifically. People are buying Christmas trees, they're buying Christmas decor. But one thing that Q4 really teaches us as merchants is that although customers are looking for that seasonality and they're looking for like the newness, your more evergreen and core products are still selling. So while you're selling Christmas trees, you're still selling curtains and wallpaper. And that's so important to keep in mind as we're merchandising any time of the year, just being cognizant of that core business as well.
Absolutely. Some people are just not in the Christmas spirit, and that is okay. They're still thinking about regular home buys. So I felt like this list was very on brand for Q4 holiday season though. So, but I still like to see it.
100%.
Okay. So we have some thoughts. I want you to dive into it because I love these and I think the people listening will too.
Yeah. So 2023, in a year full of economic uncertainty and price sensitivity, e-commerce did have many unknowns and a few surprises that emerged. And a few notable ones were, one, Amazon introduced 2 Prime events and a Black Friday NFL game, which there was a lot of buzz around. Are people going to be going into the store shopping on Black Friday? Or are they going to stay at home and be on their couch watching TV and scrolling, buying online? 2, social commerce was all the rage with the introduction. Sorry, it wasn't a reintroduction. I'm thinking about Instagram. The introduction of TikTok Shop and what that would do and impact spending wise. And then also, you had to have been living under a rock to not have heard about the Taylor Swift Eras Tour. But then there was also the release of the Barbie movie causing the internet to go crazy in a sea of pink and sparkles. And we saw that in our data. We saw people searching for things like velvet tops, velvet pants, sparkle, glitter. Like you just see all of this happening. It's really cool to be on this side of commerce, to be able to see all these trends as they emerge. And so those are just some things that were definitely moments that really helped to shape commerce for 2023.
I feel like 2023 was such a big year in general for commerce because these 3 points are realigning just how we're thinking about how people shop. Like it's the experiences, it's the TikTok shops and making it super convenient. And also like just with Prime, a shopping platform, like now owning major NFL games. Like these are all so huge. And I think that they all kind of change the trajectory of how we're seeing it in 2024.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's exciting. It makes, to me, it feels like commerce is so much more fluid now. And it's not just like, oh, I'm going to sit down on my computer, I'm going to buy something online. Like it's literally all around us everywhere we are. And it's very fluid. And I love that. It's just a really exciting space to be in.
I know. And of course, did you watch the Barbie movie?
I did not.
Oh, I didn't mean to put you on blast. I'm so sorry. You have to watch it. It's so good. Okay. So for those who have seen it, you get it. And then for those who haven't, this is your assignment. Go watch it because it's so beautiful and amazing and just like iconic. So
it is on my list. And I haven't been to a movie theater in a really long time, but it is definitely on my list to watch.
Mark it on your list. Yes. For all of those watching.
And then I did want to, but now that we've talked about some moments that really helped to shape commerce in 2023, with all this buzz and excitement around commerce and merchants really focusing on delivering magical, measurable experiences, it's so important that we keep the momentum going in 2024. And I know we will. But here are 5 themes that we see will be even more important this year than ever before. So 1, merchandising storytelling. And a lot of that happened in 2023 as we think about, like I just mentioned, cozy cardio and even like Taylor Swift and Barbie. Like, what does that have to do with my business? If customers are coming to your site looking for, curated experiences that helps them to live these moments, it's important that we meet them where they are. Also, mobile device traffic outpacing desktop. This is not going to die. Like this is here to stay. Like people are on their phones all the time. So optimizing for that is so important. 3, focusing on merchandising. So like I said, the sheer volume of searches that we saw in our Bloomreach data really emphasizes the importance of getting search right and merchandising and, optimizing as merchandisers to create the best experience possible we can from a search perspective. And then 4 is something that we are no stranger to, personalization. It's even more important. And we, here at Bloomreach, we're really focused on personalization throughout the full funnel. Like you're on a search results page, and Elena, you are in Charlotte, so it's a little bit warmer there than it is here. But if we're both looking for a jacket, maybe you need a lighter jacket than I need, but the ability to personalize those results is so critical, and it's what consumers are really looking for. And then also 5, price sensitivity. Like I've mentioned before, I don't think this is going anywhere, but being able to balance that with your core items, really helping to still tell the story. You might sell consumers on your core items or some of your new arrivals if you tell the right story, and really balancing that with also giving them a deal. So those are my 5 trends and themes that we think are going to be super important in 2024.
I think all of these are so beneficial for any retailer watching or anybody who's trying to keep up with the trends and the data. These are so important. So Roxy, thank you so much for sharing. In addition to this part of the Commerce Pulse episode today, we are going to jump into one of our latest podcast episodes that we did together with Philip Jackson, the co-founder of Future Commerce. And we talk about all kinds of fun conversations around social commerce and trends that we saw in Q4 and the whole year of 2023, including Barbie, Taylor Swift, Beyonce. So it's going to be a continuation of what we just talked about. So we hope you enjoy. Let us know what you think. And we will be back for another episode soon. But thanks again, Roxy. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Talk soon. Bye.
Bye.
All-new Commerce Experience podcast. I'm your host, Elena Kacan, Community Marketing Manager at Bloomreach. I am so excited for this debut episode with Roxy and Philip. We are talking about some of my favorite things: pop culture, music, shopping, and most importantly, how do they collide to create a new era for commerce? So before we get into the conversation, here's the context that you need. Roxy Couse is the Director of Customer Experience at Bloomreach. She's got over a decade of e-commerce and merchandising experience, and she's also led merchandising strategy for several Fortune 500 companies and hosts the Bloomreach Merchandiser Meetups, as well as the Commerce Pulse quarterly webinar. Philip Jackson is a self-professed cultural theorist and has been called the Anthony Bourdain of e-commerce. He's the co-founder of the internet's favorite culture meets commerce magazine, Future Commerce. With that, here we go. Okay, Philip and Roxy, welcome to the show. I'm so thrilled to have you guys on today. Thank you for joining.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
What a pleasure.
You guys are my debut episode. I'm very excited to have you here. We are spotlighting the intersection of pop culture and commerce. Now, Roxy, you've got the experience on the data side. Philip, you've got the experience with Future Commerce. So I thought you two would be perfect for today's episode. So in that spirit, I'm going to kick it off with an easy softball question, high level. How have you guys observed the impact of pop culture on consumer behavior, particularly in the context of commerce?
Well, we are recording this today on the Queen, Mariah Carey's debut of the season. Today, they cracked her out of the ice in a social media post for a 29-year-old song that had a cast and VFX and a budget for a song that's been around almost 30 years. Of course, I'm talking about All I Want for Christmas. I think pop culture absolutely drives what we buy in commerce because we're so connected to each other. And I think a large portion of the way that we make buying decisions is around our means of belonging. And how do we belong and relate to each other? It's in social dynamics, in the way that we provide social proof to each other about what we need, not just to survive and like have basic needs, but what we need to survive within our social groups. And so the thing that we look at a lot at Future Commerce is the way that culture drives this commerce behavior. Of course, today there's so many ways to buy things, especially online. You know, we have social commerce, what have you. But it is an incredible thing to see right now as we're talking that a lot of the discourse of the last few years, especially in the pre-pandemic era, about like algorithmic timelines and no such thing as a monoculture. Well, it turns out maybe all those things weren't necessarily true, because entertainment today is very much a monoculture centered around a few handful of creators like the Mariah Careys of the world, like the Taylor Swifts of the world, like the Beyoncés of the world, who drive purchasing decisions based on the things that they're creating taste around. And I think that that's really interesting today, especially as, you know, wherever that media happens to be, you can buy what you're seeing and you can shorten the path to purchase. We have to now, in the e-commerce realm, merchandise at the speed of culture. And we don't really have a choice anymore, right? We have to keep up with what's happening culturally for us to remain relevant.
It's amazing when you see these trends emerge, like the Eras Tour or the Barbie movie. We can directly see that in the data, and consumers are buying and voting with these trends with their dollars. So, for example, for the Eras Tour, we saw this peak in cowboy boots. We saw a peak in Speak Now, sparkly dresses. And it's, as merchandisers, we have to really get creative. So, okay, sparkly dresses are trending. Let's create a sparkly dresses category. Let's create a curated collection around this entire event. And you see a lot of social having a hand in how we merchandise. And it's so important to stay on top of those trends, you know, in fast fashion. For example, you know, Forever 21 or other sites that sell more like apparel and they're very trendy, you can see them curating shops around this. But even if you have a more evergreen shop, you know, cowboy boots, if you sell cowboy boots, this was a huge time for you as people are getting dressed for a Taylor Swift concert. We also saw that in the Barbie movie, the launch of that, and the color pink being this hot color this year. We continue to see that trend, and we like to look year over year. Like, you can really see that these movies and these events and these things have had a direct impact on consumer shopping and how they are browsing sites, because you see these peaks in the data.
It gives you a sense of FOMO when something is happening in the world of pop culture that you're not aware of. I don't know about y'all, but I have FOMO really bad. So whenever I think of, like, I see, you know, people talking about Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift or the Beyonce tour, I'm like, I have to know what's going on. So I'm sure that has something to do with us wanting to kind of keep up with what everybody's talking about on social, don't you think?
Yeah, I agree. And even around Halloween, which yesterday, it's funny to see the costumes that have emerged based on trends that have happened this year. So I saw so many Taylor Swift, so many Travis Kelce couples costumes. But I have FOMO too. Actually, I just learned about the grandpa chic trend. I can't remember sorry, I feel like I'm not as trendy as I should be, but it's like, what is that? So I had to learn. I definitely don't want to be the last to know about these things when they happen.
What I think is interesting about that is culture is cyclical. And especially in an era of social media, the speed at which these things move, you know, a couple's costume can be a way for you to sort of tuck something in your back pocket to be like, I thought about this really hard, and I brought something back that is nostalgic. The funny thing is that nostalgic now is 6 month old. You know, it's a 6 month old meme. It's not, nostalgia doesn't even have to reach that far back in our history for it to feel like you're hearkening back to a prior era. It's a prior era from like last season. And those are interesting. I think those provide an interesting context for us to merchandise within, because those decisions and those purchasing decisions aren't necessarily made in the moment. They're made as a means of us flexing to each other that we're thoughtful people, right? And the way that you can help a customer to look like they're an incredible, thoughtful, and like smart and witty person is for you to merchandise the right thing to them at the right time. So what I'm seeing a lot of brands doing right now is not necessarily being hip to what's happening right now in culture. It's putting it in their back pocket for the 6 months from now when that becomes nostalgic. So if you think about what was trending 6 months ago, bringing that back up at the right moment when it can spur a purchase decision might be the thing that differentiates you as being the tastemaker for your customer or not. Mm-hmm. I think that that's really powerful.
Brands have to kind of curate that experience for you just so you can think about it at the right time.
I always say the job of a merchandiser is so difficult, but you also have to be seeking trends, or they're not even trends yet, but we see this coming. We look at that a lot in our Bloomreach data. By a customer, at a customer level, we see these peaks like, oh, this is spiking. Is this a new trend? We should definitely get in front of it. But we also noticed like Halloween was yesterday, but our trending searches in this past week was family Christmas pajama sets. Like, customers and shoppers move so fast, and you literally have to be well ahead of them, weeks ahead of them. Like, in their mind, like, Halloween is done and now we need to move on, and your business has to be ready to absorb that consumer expectation.
Well, that kind of leads me into my next question. It was going to be, how merchandising is, working at the speed of culture, but what does that bring up for organizations? Like, are they keeping up? Is there a pressure to keep up? Is that a big challenge? I know, Philip, you talk to a lot of brands. Do you hear anything directly from them of like, we're in a scramble? I don't know if merchandisers get enough credit for that.
The scramble, I think, is it happens in a number of ways. Well, first of all, Roxy, you bring up an amazing point, which is there are, consumers who are unlike me, who plan ahead. and they are thinking ahead, and they're sort of the early indicators that we're trying to tap into to figure out where the bulk of people who don't plan ahead will be buying in about a month or 6 weeks time. And then there's the people who are opportunistic, who are buying after the fact because they want to search out a good deal. So the half-life of your the way that you merchandise, or the way that you might be planning a particular e-commerce activation has to last for that 2 to 3 month window to capture everybody who's viable. Mm-hmm. The early adopter, early planner, the person who's in that sweet center, the people who are like opportunistic after the fact, who are planning for next season. They're just planners in reverse. They're way ahead of everybody else. But here's the problem. The channels in which it happens are changing dramatically. The attention span of the marketer is getting further fragmented every day, and the channels where you have to find new sources of growth are growing every day too. So knowing where to be also has its own trend and forecasting and insight function within the business. That is the thing I'm hearing creates the most friction for the business operator today, not necessarily the consumer trend chasing, because those things tend to be a given. They're already functions of the business.
On the strategy side with clients, they're at least from I'll use our discovery customers, for example, search merchandising. They're primarily focused on their own on-site experience. Like, once that customer gets there, what does that experience look like? Have we made product discovery easier for them? But one of the things that I always challenge is as you're seeing your metrics, maybe you've seen this huge lift in conversion, maybe you've seen a drop in conversion. Where did that traffic come from? And it's so important to be able to understand the mix of the traffic and where you're driving consumers from, because that allows you to better identify where you should be. If like you're getting a huge amount of traffic from Pinterest or TikTok or wherever you're playing. One, as merchandisers, it's so important to be buddies with marketing, because you need to know what the traffic strategy looks like, where your shoppers, or where your ideal persona of shoppers are, your customers are, and who you're driving to the site, because that can help to create a better experience for them.
I do think that personalization is huge, because as brands are trying to create a personalized experience, they're thinking really hard about this stuff, and they have to be on top of it, and they have to kind of be aware and on the forefront for you almost. Philip, what are you seeing on that side of personalization? Is it something that they're really thinking about? I feel like at this point, like, you can't engage with a brand without feeling like, I need to feel like they get me, much like Taylor Swift does. So I think that she's obviously a perfect example of that. But anything you're seeing from your side on the personalization piece?
Let me tell you what I'm looking at to see around the next corner, because I think right now we're in an existential moment for brands that have a well-formed opinion around what they should be doing around personalization. Personalization often exists outside of the website experience for most brands today because website has its own challenges. You have APP and ATT from iOS 14 and onwards has like made it really difficult for you to perform a lot of functions as a marketer. So what is coming next? And I see a new type of a marketing function that's happening in the world where ad creative is driving generative AI creative on the website. And so there are some new technologies that exist specifically for media buyers so that they don't have to go through their website and merchandising teams to spin up a million landing pages that align to ad creative, because ad creative can be exist in so many places today. It's not just performance marketing, it's also UGC. And so you have, as the number of people that are creating creative for a brand is exponentially increasing. Again, remember, it's not just the marketer anymore. It's also users that are creating content that are useful for ads. As these are exponentially increasing, you have to also align like the value prop and the aesthetic and the voice of the brand to the creative that drives people onto the website. It's actually really hard to do that through a traditional website and through the tools that websites give you. And so there's a new set of marketing tools coming around the corner that look at the ad, the creative, the tone, and who that intended audience is for based on your ad set. And they're driving generative AI to just-in-time create a web experience and a headless shopping experience that is made one of one for that customer. And if you think about that taken to its logical end, it forecasts something that we've been talking about at Future Commerce for a little while, which is a brand is becoming more faceted over time. The thing that a brand is to a customer is no longer blue like the sky is blue that we can all agree on. It is very unique to the viewpoint of who that person is and how they encountered your brand and how that follows them around to every experience.
I'll take it from the standpoint of merchandising and how AI one gets me very excited, not because I think about it day in and day out in my job, but also coming from, I was a merchandiser on an in-house team. It was very difficult to scale. It's like, wait, there's these marketing campaigns out in the wild and they're showing this product in the ad, but when they get to our site, it doesn't match that on the website. So let's manually do this to match the ad. Like, it was just, it's so hard to scale those type of approaches. So it's really cool to hear about the technology around, and we've talked about this as, commerce is not happening necessarily on the website anymore. It's well up in the funnel, and we have to be prepared to have a strategy around it as a business.
I wanted to kind of get back to the pop culture side, just because I do think that it is really important, and I think a lot of brands can learn a lot from the icons of this era. I feel like Beyonce, Taylor Swift, Barbie, we're all coming out with really amazing experiences for people, which kind of allows folks to gravitate towards them, emulate them, dress up for them. I mean, like, I saw a stat that was like women control and influence over 80% of consumer spending, and they finally feel like they're being spoken to. So I guess my question is, what strategies do you suggest to like tap into the market in this specific way? Maybe there's this huge emergence of women kind of going out there and setting trends, but anything you guys can add to tapping into the market from a strategic perspective, kind of similar to these, iconic ladies in their era, in their fun era?
Yeah, so I think that these women and these examples, they've not only started to think of themselves as artists, but they're also a brand. Like, every step that they take is a part of their brand. You don't have to sell Taylor Swift apparel to follow a trend or be a part of it. There's actually this trend that was happening on TikTok, and I actually saw it on Good Morning America as well, about the cozy cardio. And I saw so many retailers pop up with like a cozy shop, and it was around this cozy cardio, and basically the trend was like, you can do cardio in your house and still be cozy. You can have like a hot coffee while you're walking on your walking pad, which is such a vibe and something I participate in. But it is just so important that, you know, you're taking advantage of these social trends in your own way and being authentic and relatable and showing up the way that you want to as a brand, while also being very on the times and what's happening and what's trending and what your shoppers and consumers are looking for.
I think the shoppers and consumers too, just being one of them, are looking for that authentic, real engagement, interaction. There's this feeling that Taylor Swift, you know, just gets you, like with your with her music. So it's like, how can brands tap into that feeling of relatability and just giving customers that feeling of like, we get what you're going through. That's like marketing 101,
exactly.
right?
I'm going to take a little bit of a different angle here, and maybe it's because my social media is kind of trending towards conspiracy theories. Don't ask me why. I try not to look at them. There is a recent product release. You're talking about sort of, you know, the era of the women, and incredible, like, iconic women that are owning their own distribution, and incredible business women. I think the Kardashians and the Jenners can't be left out of that conversation. And Kim Kardashian's Skims brand recently dropped a new product. So as we're recording this last week, there was what looked like a joke announcement of a new bra by Skims that has like built-in into the bra. And part of the sort of marketing campaign of that was to sort of do this like fake almost Dollar Shave Club ad, tongue-in-cheek, ironic video around the release of this product. What I think is really interesting about that is specifically built for a type of a consumer to look at this and say, wow, that's really interesting. I don't know if I'd necessarily buy that, but the viral marketing is really stellar. Here's what's interesting about the timing of that release. It comes after a very quiet, soft launch of their partnership with NFL and NBA stars that was specifically meant to reposition the brand for men. Okay. And what is crazy as a like conspiracy theorist here is that the viral marketing stunt meant for the core audience, not meant to push product, is meant to drive awareness back to the core channel so that men going back to look at the Kim Kardashian content will now see that the products are now for them as well. And this is the way that it's a clever device of merchandising and product innovation from one of the greatest brand builders on planet Earth through Kim Kardashian's Skims brand, is that the way you get men to pay attention is through the power that the women hold in the audience and through viral marketing and the way that they merchandise new product and innovation. I think that's a really clever thing that only could happen with that type of with a brand that keeps you guessing and a brand that is always pushing the boundaries.
I also love that it was tied to a social cause. And I know in all my time as a merchandiser, I always loved when we could tie the products or that we were selling and the commerce experience back to a social cause. And it's really cool that that was also a part of the initiative and the campaign strategy.
Well, I was going to say, gone are the days where you could just like put out a social post and like everyone sees it. Now it's like a full multi-channel strategy. It's an experience. It's a vibe. It's an energy. But like on every single channel, like you mentioned, Philip, it's got to be different. It's got to be unique to that platform. It's got to be innovative. It's got to be cool. It's got to be sexy. It's got to be shareable. Like, I feel like marketers and merchandisers now have a harder job than ever. Like the people who are working on these teams of these big brands, like they're always having to think about not only what's next and what to kind of prep for in the market, what's trending, but like also how to like be better than the last time and be better than your competition. And there's just so much pressure to be amazing. I know at Bloomreach, we are really creative when it comes to, you know, our own brand creativity and like campaigns and concepts, because it's like, all right, like we can't just do another webinar. Like we got to keep it fresh. We got to keep it funky. So how are you guys seeing, you know, people getting really creative? I think as a marketing professional or data-driven creators or optimizers, people that we speak to at Bloomreach, like what do you think that they can take away from this, or anything that they can kind of keep in their toolbox as a brand, as it relates to pop culture and these icons who are building these huge brands and taking personalization to the next level, if you will?
One thing that I've noticed is, so we saw Threads launched a few months back, and there were some brands that were not a first mover, And there was this running joke on Threads. It was like, oh, they were waiting for legal approval, which is probably true. It's like, you cannot launch a new platform until we have signed off on it and gone through all the checks. But I think also it's interesting to see when something new is created, like Threads, how brands show up on this platform versus other ones that they've been on. And I also saw, I wish I had a source, but it might have been on LinkedIn, where someone's like, it is not every brand's position to be funny. Like, we can't all be comedians. So like, but you can be real, you can be relatable, you can spit facts, like you can do all of those things that are so on brand, where, yeah, that you just have to figure out, like, how we've talked about authenticity, like you have to figure out how to be authentic to your brand, but also be innovative at the same time and expand and grow your strategy, like the Skims example, which I think is a phenomenal example of how to expand your market share, how to grow, and also be creative in the same process.
Well, as a marketer, you have to be so clear about who you're speaking to, because if you're speaking to everyone, you're actually speaking to no one. So when you get really clear about who you're talking to and what they care about and their motivations and what problems you're solving for them, that's when you can really get tactical. Because if your audience doesn't care about, you know, XYZ, like you're literally falling on deaf ears. You're wasting time, you're wasting energy. So getting really clear on the audience will then get really clear on how do we actually appeal to them.
You know, one of these impressive but maybe a little bit daunting, you know, roles around this idea that commerce and culture are intertwined is that we do have these tools and we can move faster now. So if you look at, you know, again, maybe it's conspiracy theory. There's two ways to think about it. But there was the merchandising story probably of the year of how New Balance within 12 hours turned around ad creative that landed in everybody's inbox the next morning of red 550s that Taylor wore on that fateful Kansas City Chiefs game where, you know, where they launched the Travis and Taylor relationship live on NFL broadcast for all to see. But Taylor was wearing red 550s, and New Balance the next morning, magically, this is the magic of the moment, magically had ad creative in email in everybody's email inbox that was a model wearing a Letterman's jacket that had the number 89 embroidered on the jacket, wearing red 550s, sitting on a fold-down stadium bench. And that is... either, you have to think about it two ways. It's either meticulously planned and nothing happens by accident, and that means that there's an impressive amount of coordination between all parties involved, and that marketing requires unbelievable thought and skill and precision to execute, or it's an incredible use of quick turnaround and generative AI, and, you know, getting a model and doing a shoot and doing something that in the overnight hours to push something through. And so I think that kind of expectation is where we are from the consumer side. The consumer expects that. They don't care how hard it is. They don't care what tools you need to use, but that's what they expect, is that the things that they buy line up with the things that inspire them to buy it. Now, whether that happens in Threads and you need legal approval or not, the new channels are going to launch. They're going to launch faster. They're going to be more plenteous than ever. The ad creative needs to turn around faster than ever. It needs to happen overnight and be in your inbox in the morning. And what it actually takes, regardless of which side you take on how that came to be, what it actually takes is teams that are aligned to making that happen no matter what.
I had an interesting data point because we were studying this Taylor Swift data dating back to the beginning of the year, and we had pulled data from March 1st to July 31st, so the end of July, when her Eras tour was in high gear. And one of the data points we found was that the highest single day of traffic was seen on July 7th, which was, that was the highest day in sessions that we'd seen, which was the day that Taylor Swift had an event in Kansas City. And I think that was very interesting now that I look back on it, because did we predict this before it actually happened?
I know what happened.
Just a little fun fact.
I love that. Look, Roxy dropping the tea over here.
I know exactly. It's like, did Bloomreach know that this was the thing?
Did we know? As we're talking about Taylor Swift and Beyonce and Barbie, marketers are trying to create a magic moment for their customers. Even in B2B, we try to create great moments for our folks. So I think that is like the standard, the norm. Like as consumers, like you said, we are not willing to wait. Like even now, if a shipping takes more than 2 days, I'm like appalled. I'm like, how could it not be Amazon fast? So I think it's interesting how we're moving at the speed of pop culture. Like everybody's just living their life and we're supposed to keep up with it. And as a marketer myself, and Roxy, you've been a merchandiser before, and Philip, you're kind of watching it play out in real time. Do you find that, I was going to say, like, Philip, you've talked about tools and everything. Like, how do you foresee it? Is it going to get even faster? Are we kind of at its peak right now? What are you saying?
It's a good question. I think we maybe have a little bit of a reprieve in that there's an expectation that your marketing messages now for the next 2 months align around holiday and New Year, New You, resolution season. I think it's all very predictable. There might be some, little one-offs come up here and there, but generally I think in the summer and in the early autumn is the place for brands to have to play and be creative, and they have a lot of white space in their marketing calendars to have to figure out what to slot in there. So I think these are actually sympathetic to each other. There's not a lot of room in the marketing calendar for the next 65, 70 days for you to find something to turn around fast that aligns with a cultural moment. So it might be that the nature of slow news in the summer and in the early fall allows us to have to be more culturally aligned. The culture, at least in the West, is going to be very aligned around holiday for the next 60, 70 days. And that might be a good thing. It might be a bad thing, but you've definitely been planning. If you're listening to this, you've probably been planning for that for months. You're not having to turn that around overnight. So hopefully everybody takes a little solace in that. Beyond that, though, I think we do. The expectation is getting higher and higher every single day. Is that you mentioned the Amazon effect and sort of the fast free shipping. I think the Amazon effect applies to everything. It's not just Amazon. It's the fast ad creative, the fast UGC. Every great experience that you're having in digital with every brand is now the standard bearer, that the expectation is there with all experiences.
Totally.
I need the TikTok experience, but I need it everywhere. I need the Amazon experience, but I need it everywhere.
So true.
One thing that I think could change the game this holiday season that we have not seen in the past is the trends that emerge from influencers. So, for example, I was listening into an Insider Intelligence webinar a few weeks ago, and they mentioned that for Gen Z, TikTok is the number 2 search engine of where they search for products, which is wild because that is on par with Walmart.com. They're searching TikTok more than they're searching on YouTube. So as you see trends emerge, and it's funny, when I was a merchandiser, one of the biggest things that we had to watch out for was Oprah's wish list. Like, we had to be ready to react with what's going to show up on this list, but like, we don't know what influencers are going to push at what time and how we need to react as a business. So I think that could create some reaction to, making sure that we're ready for those trends outside of just our evergreen, it's holiday, we need to sell as much as possible for our shoppers. So social will be very interesting to watch, especially with TikTok Shop launching, Philip, that you mentioned earlier on, and all of the things happening on social media.
I love this conversation, and it's clear that the influence of pop culture on commerce is a multifaceted phenomenon. We've talked about a lot of things today. And I know it's going to continue to shape our economy and consumer behaviors, much like we talked about. So for those listening, I encourage you guys to consider how your own brand or business can apply these learnings for continued growth. I know these guests dropped some amazing gems, so hope you guys take this into your day-to-day. But as we close out, Roxy, Philip, maybe you start. Tell us what's going on at Future Commerce, anything we could look forward to or maybe plug as we close out.
Yeah, I think it pertains to the idea of culture and commerce coming together. Future Commerce now for our 3rd year in a row are popping up at Art Basel. So Art Basel Miami Beach is December 6th, 7th, and 8th. And we believe that commerce is influenced by art, creativity, and innovation. And so we're going to explore that in its depths. Join us if you happen to be in Miami Beach, and get a dose of culture and some pop culture at that as we explore the idea of muses, the things that give us innovation and inspiration. And you can find out more about that at futurecommerce.com/muses.
Very timely. Perfect for today's conversation. And Roxy, do you have anything coming up that you want to highlight?
Yeah, the one thing I would add is we've just released Commerce Compass Insights, where we talk about trends that are emerging week over week, and we're also looking at data month over month and year over year. So we're keeping a pulse on commerce and really showing what's happening as it's happening, because that's so important as we think about what trends are emerging and what are consumers shopping for at this time. So if you follow Bloomreach on LinkedIn, that's a good place for you to be able to see this information. And again, this is released every single week. I'm very excited about this, and we know that it's very valuable information.
Absolutely. So connect with us all on LinkedIn for more info. Thank you guys so much for being such great guests on my debut episode. And to our listeners, thank you guys for tuning in to the all new Commerce Experience podcast. So be sure to follow the show on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. Until next time, bye.